Good morning, accursed, for the day after debate edition of The Curse of Politics. The debate last night was at 6:30 p.m., so I think Scott Reid watched it on a BlackBerry from Ben's soccer field. I was all set up, had my rum and coke and cheesies get me through the event. Jenny, were you at a debate watching party? I hate those fucking things.
I was not at a debate watching party. I watched it by myself.
Right.
Debate watching party. It was great, man. We had like a bowl of licorice. We had some sodas close on the sideboard. It's a great time. Everybody was talking, making like really important points.
I hate this. I hate those events because the headquarters gathers everybody at a bar to watch the debate or something, and everybody's in a mood for something incredibly triumphal. And of course, the debate never works out that way, right? It's never sort of one solid punch after another where everybody can cheer and cheer. So the mood gets increasingly sort of grumbly and mixed, and you're trying to keep spirits up. I hate those events. Glad you weren't having.
Well, and also you want to watch the debate. Like if you're actually working for a candidate, you actually want to watch it. And if you're people like us, you want to watch it because we're going to talk about it. Scott talks about it like on the news. We're talking about it on the podcast. And just when something gets good, someone leans over and wants to. What did you think about that? And you're like, shut up.
And the fifth most important person in the campaign, because the four most important people in the campaign are at the debate, the fifth most important person in the campaign starts table jumping about 45 minutes into the debate, worried that people aren't sufficiently excited. Hey, did you see what the leader did there? Pretty good, huh? How are those fries? Be right back. Off they go.
Oh, God. Hey, you know what, you guys? Allison Smith from Queen's Park Today is here. Hi, Allison.
Hey, Allison.
Hey, y'all. I was watching the debate from the less glamorous version of a debate party, which was the very gray windowless media room at the TVO headquarters with a bunch of other journalists on a very small TV. The TV was, I don't have a big TV in my home, but this one was smaller than that. We're all kind of laptops crowded around it. And,
well, it's the William Davis studio, so maybe the TV's from before 1984.
Great. We got color for you. Why are you complaining?
We're all negotiating. Can we have one more table, please? Like, we need a little bit more, a couple more chairs, please. Come on.
So what'd you see?
Oh, what'd we see? I mean, we got to stop talking about the Highway 413 at some point, right? I feel like anybody watching that from outside the GTA, honestly, probably a lot of people inside the GTA don't know what this is. Like, I was texting with some friends from Ottawa, and they're, the Highway 413 means nothing to them. And I feel like it took up 25 minutes of the debate. Otherwise, I thought it was a bit more exciting than the Northern debate. I maybe even, just because of the setup, the leaders were all on those podiums like quite close together, which I think created a dynamic where they had to actually really engage with each other. They couldn't quite ignore each other. And Schreiner was so good.
Yeah, he was. He was great. So what are they doing today to try to either compensate for the damage or springboard off their success? What are they off to today?
Yeah, I mean, again, nothing too exciting. Andrea Horvath is going to be talking about repairing schools over in Scarborough, and then she's going to go east to Peterborough and Kingston. Doug Ford.
Might as well keep going.
Yeah. Doug Ford talking about getting it done up in North Toronto. And Stephen Del Duca, he's talking about work-life balance for Ontario workers. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to be, but it's probably something in that affordability pledge that he signed with his left hand yesterday. We found out he was left-handed when he signed that pledge. And then he's going to hold some regional town halls.
That's one of the most interesting things I've heard about Stephen Del Duca, that he's a lefty.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Hey, whatever happened to the post-debate rally? Remember when campaigns used to have a rally the morning after the debate to prove that they won?
Yeah, those suck.
The momentum builders? I guess you just drift off now. Okay, well, thank you, Allison. Thanks for joining us. You're
welcome.
We'll see you tomorrow when, presumably, Andrea will be reporting from the East.
I assume we'll all gather quite a bit later, affected as we will be by Del Duca's work-life balance treatise, and So this will happen at 4 p.m. over cocktails.
I assume it's going to be a 4-day. He's going to talk about a 4-day work week. No,
Unless you're going to
sense.
grade 13.
And I'm going to plug it today. Lots of your listeners are followers of federal politics, and I just wanted to note that on politicstoday.news we do have a federal politics newsletter that is just as great as Queen's Park Today. It's called Parliament Today. So if you are cruising to the website, you should sign up for a free trial of that one too. If you're a Hill watcher.
Ooh, Parliament Today sounds racy.
I'll keep up to date on my committees. Thank you very much, Allison. We have a lot to talk about in terms of the debate today, jam-packed schedule. But first, we have fresh data from Greg Lyle and the Innovative Research Group.
Holy snapping rulers. All right.
So this is obviously pre-debate, but very, very imminently pre-debate data that's collected over the weekend. Let me start by just this interesting point for you, by the way. He asked people, have you read, seen, or heard anything about this party in the past few days? Conservatives, 46%, yes. Liberals, 35%, yes. NDP, 34%, yes. So just as a reality check for people who are listening and the three of us, right? Like most people go days and days without hearing anything about the campaign from any of the parties. Like that is the level of attention that is going on. That, 2/3 of people say, well, I actually haven't heard anything from the Liberal campaign or the NDP campaign in days. And half the people say that about the Conservatives.
The
Anyway,
20, the 20-point drop between the Conservatives and the other parties, I think, is also interesting. Maybe we're not dinosaurs, David. Maybe the fact that the only party that's doing like mainstream primetime television advertising, maybe that tells you that they're actually being seen by people. Whereas, we're told, no, just run digital ads on, whatever. The fact that the leader's left-handed, and that'll rally people.
So we've been talking the last little while here about our presenting sponsor, TELUS, and more specifically, how their world-leading technology and their compassion are inextricably linked in the way they do business. Driven by social purpose, TELUS doesn't just believe you can drive social change as part of a successful bottom line. They act it every day in caring for the environment, modernizing agricultural practices for better food outcomes, in bridging the digital divide, community giving, and in what I want to talk about today, healthcare. Health for Good is the name of a number of TELUS's community-centered programs that improve the way practitioners get critical care to the most vulnerable among us. And because I told you TELUS believes that what gets measured gets done, and I'm a bit of a data geek myself, here are some numbers that help tell that story. Last year, 4 new TELUS mobile health clinics were unveiled in Victoria, Vancouver, Toronto, and Niagara region. Partnering with local health organizations, these things deliver quite literally compassion on 4 wheels, a fleet of highly connected vans powered by TELUS health technology. Last year, they rolled into our most vulnerable communities and supported 35,000 patient visits, administering over 9,000 COVID vaccinations. Healthcare is just one aspect of TELUS's ESG commitments, environmental, social, and governance, and how they put the well-being of their customers, communities, and the planet first. You can read more about it all in their sustainability and ESG report at telus.com/sustainability. Okay, here's the moment you've been waiting for. First of all, with the undecided included, you have 31% Ford PC.
Sorry?
31%. 31. This is with the undecided.
Yeah.
With the undecided, Scott. So it's
Okay.
not the
All right.
allocated numbers. 31 conservative, 27 liberal, 20 NDP, 6 green, 12 undecided. When you apportion them, you get 36% conservative, 31% liberal, 23% NDP, 7% green, and perhaps the most interesting part of it, regions. Toronto, Liberal 39, PC 30, NDP 20.
Wow.
That's the ooh.
That's an astonishing finding.
Rest of the GTA, Conservatives 40, Liberals 34, NDP 22. Gap between the Liberals and the Conservatives closed in half since a week ago, Greg's last outing, from 12-point lead for the Conservatives to a 6-point lead for the Conservatives in the GTA.
Wow.
Southwest, Conservatives 37, NDP 26, Liberals 23, Green 10. North and East, Conservatives 36, Liberals 29, NDP 23, Green 6.
Well, that suggests momentum for the Liberals.
No question.
That suggests real momentum for the Liberals, and it suggests real trouble for the NDP, obviously, devastating trouble for the NDP. To be trailing that badly in Toronto means that they are looking at like a lot of seat losses.
Well, probably all their like core 416 seats that they have, which they have a fair bit of them.
Yeah.
All across the province, though, like they're not strong in any region. They're stronger than the Liberals in some regions, but they're not strong in any region. No. They have, I think, the most questions to ask themselves this morning about what they're going to do. So anyway, before we move on to the debate, any quick reactions to that data, Jenny?
I think things still look good for Doug. I do think that the 905, so the GTA other, the fact that Del Duca is making ground there, and the lead is only 6 points. That should be worrisome to the Conservative war room for some of those seats that we didn't win by a lot in the last election through Peel and Markham and what have you. So if that's the case, if you're the Conservative campaign, you're looking at resources and leaders tour and all that kind of stuff in terms of the kind of the final 2 weeks of the campaign. It also seems to be good news about for Del Duca if this is an all over trend, because there was an article out yesterday or the day before saying that there's a real concern about him winning his seat. I think we've talked about it. Michael Tobolo's doing he's mounted a good campaign. He's got a ton of volunteers. I know there's a lot of people that are in that riding, and so it'll be very interesting to watch and to get the numbers next week to see where we're at.
The relatively safe debate strategy makes a little bit more of Del Duca's makes a little bit more sense looking at this data, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, the first thing that I think of when I hear these numbers is that, assuming they're accurate, it means that we've been wrong about everything we've been saying. It means that stuff is happening. It means that the strategy of presenting a bunch of
and not for the first or last time.
I'm astonished. I can't believe. I couldn't have seen this coming. There's nothing in our history to indicate that we might be misreading public attitudes. I'm flabbergasted. I'll need a moment to recover. But seriously, I mean, it tells you that that somebody's paying attention, that things are moving, that the strategy of presenting a comprehensive platform, a bunch of policies, that seems to be gradually but effectively introducing Del Duca to the province, and then it's helping certainly in Toronto, or perhaps elsewhere. And obviously, they're meeting the first condition of clearly outpacing the NDP. I mean, that's a 5-point when you look at it. That's a 5-point margin with 2 weeks to go between themselves and the PCs. That's game on, and especially if you're picking up ground at GTA, which is where you can harvest seats. So those are exciting numbers for the Liberals, and it demonstrates that the whole hey, nothing's really happening. They're not making the case against Ford that we've been arguing that's not correct, and that this broad approach has been having an effect. We'll see how the next 2 weeks go. The second
puts an interesting context around the leak from the Conservatives about their internal briefing. Eh?
Well, it certainly suggests that your speculation is correct, right? That they're they're trying to trying to rat fuck, right? That obviously that's manufactured context and analysis that obviously they are concerned about the Liberals.
If we're looking at the numbers from the 10th, so I was just going through my notes to find from the 10th, the Doug is up in north and east, or down in north and east from kind of down in southwest, but surprisingly, he's actually up a bit from in Toronto, it appears. So
yeah, for sure it would be.
Yeah, he's moved from third to second place in Toronto, I think.
So to Allison's point, in terms of this being a very Toronto-centric campaign, he's making up ground in kind of the 416 area, but that might actually not mean anything. We're not in play outside of the 416 suburbs. It's not like we're fighting for seats in Spadina, Fort York, or Toronto Centre. And so this may be, if these numbers are similar to what the Conservative War Room is this is then for the next 2 weeks. It's like, okay, guys, we've done our thing in Toronto. We're known. We're a Toronto-centric party. Doug is a very Toronto-specific guy for the most part. Ran for mayor of Toronto. People know him here. We've got to get back into the Southwest. We've got to get back into Ottawa, take him back up north, because that's seemingly where the Conservatives are bleeding support is outside of the Toronto areas.
That's interesting, because I would have had a slightly different take. I mean, maybe I do a day or two to bolster that, but today's Tuesday, so you got 15 days, effectively 15 full days of actual campaigning left. I would think that these numbers, if they're accurate, and if they're the same numbers that the PCs have, that you'd see 10 of those 15 days Doug would be spending in the 905. That he'd want to make certain that he staunches himself in the 905, fortifies himself in the 905, and win seats there. And maybe, as you say, dedicate 3, 4, 5 days to plugging holes here and there in other parts of the province. But I'd be pretty obsessed with the 905. And if that's what their schedule looks like, then that'll be the tell that they see these numbers too.
Well, just a couple of things about the 905. I mean, in order for the Liberals to form a government, they don't need to be competitive in the 905. They need to sweep the 905. Yeah. They're not going to win anything outside of urban areas in the city, in the province, and that's mostly Ottawa. Maybe they'll pick up a seat in London or something like that. But their seats are going to come from the GTA in Toronto. They have to get all of them there. So in order to win, you have to absolutely sweep the entire GTA region for the Liberals to win. I do wonder whether this is bringing a minority more possibly into play.
Yeah. Well, we'll start to see that dynamic. And it will be very interesting to see how the Conservative message of NDP Liberal Alliance equals chaos and flames. I know that we'll hear that. I know that it's already been road tested in a very modest way. I'm not as convinced that that's necessarily the takeaway voters have. I don't think that's a proven proposition that people will flip out. But it may be, if these numbers again are accurate, then we're going to hear that, because that dynamic is going to start to emerge with media. They're going to start to ask that question. Campaigns are going to start to talk about it. Liberal and NDP will pretend that it's not happening. By the way, the obvious other takeaway is that the NDP are in great difficulty.
But in the 905 region, the gap between the Liberals and the Conservatives have gone down, obviously, but they're not all to the Liberals. The NDP picked up 3%, the Liberals picked up 3%. So it's not like it's all of a sudden the Liberals jumped up 6%. Right. There is a 6% gap between the parties now, but the NDP went from 19% to 22%. Liberals went from 31 to 34.
I'm still happy if I'm the Liberals. I'm still happy as long as numbers are falling off of Doug in 905, I'm happy. I figured maybe I got a shot at harvesting them.
So what comes next is dear to my heart. I'm a dog guy. I speak dog. I imagine some of you do too. I know that Christine Fabish does. Christine works for our sponsor, CN. She's a manager for the railway in Edmonton, and so is her husband. Her dog, a Chihuahua mix, came from an animal rescue shelter some years ago, and she was so impressed with the organization that she decided to devote personal time to the cause of helping animals that would otherwise face an unpleasant fate. I mean, what a wonderful way to help. Last summer, Christine joined Berkeley's Place, an organization that works on behalf of animals across Alberta and in Inuvik, further north. She fosters dogs now. Her latest is a husky puppy from Inuvik, and I've seen the picture. And seeing a little guy like that rescued and cared for is just the best. You should see the pup. Christine also picks up food and supplies donated at pet shops as part of the Berkeley's Pantry Initiative and distributes it to other animal shelters in Edmonton. You can look up the organization at berkeleysplace.com if you want to be part of the effort. berkeleysplace.com. Anyway, CN noticed what Christine was doing, and a financial grant arrived from the CN Railroaders in Your Community Fund. The fund exists to boost community-based initiatives, particularly those involving volunteers like Christine. For every hour a CN employee or pensioner volunteers, the fund donates $15 to the organization they choose. Because volunteers matter a great deal. In Christine's case, that means giving at-risk animals a second chance. Like I said, I speak dog, and this just makes me happy. So what do you think happened last night, Jenny?
I don't think a lot changed last night, to be honest. I think that, which I think is good for, which is good for Doug. I agree with Allison. I thought Schreiner performed fairly well, but I don't think there's, like we talked about, there was no killer punch. There was no one that stood out particularly head and shoulders above anyone else. I thought Horvath was the worst performer. She looked like she gave zero fucks. Like, she looked like there was no prep. She just showed up and said,
"Did she know there was an opening statement?"
Her opening, yeah, well, nice, good to be here.
Too bad you're here. Too bad you're watching. This is dull, but maybe I shouldn't have said that. Drift off into something else. It was bizarre. Yeah.
It was like she literally, there was no prep. She got out of her car or bus, walked into the studio, walked to the podium and said, "I'm here."
I couldn't detect a strategy in it. That's for damn sure.
No, and there was no consistency to her attack. I thought that what did happen didn't matter, and what didn't happen mattered more than anything. And, what did happen was Schreiner had a good night. Ford looked to me like he was a bit shaky at the beginning. So those things happened, but I don't think they mattered. What didn't happen was you didn't see a congregating sort of line of attack that all three leaders were coming at. So it was all of a sudden, holy smokes, Ford was rocked. He couldn't get away from issue X. He could not get away from long-term care. He kept getting smashed on affordability. You didn't get that narrative. So I think that Ford got stronger as the debate went on for two reasons. One, he himself seemed to perform better. He kind of found his rhythm with his lines, and he had some good lines and good counters as it went on. But maybe more than anything, what maybe gave him the space to get better was the Liberal, NDP, and Green attacks became diffuse. So there are schools at one moment, their affordability, then they're about lots and lots on Highway 14. It's all sort of scattered between them and among them. And that's helpful for the incumbent, because then you just get a clusterfuck of reporting that says, the premier, took shots from all sides, but came out relatively unscathed. I mean, that's the lazy headline lead that media will go for, because otherwise they have to make a qualitative judgment, and that puts them in a position of risk, and they don't do that. So that's what they saw. That's what they report. And unless millions of people tuned in and because they watched the whole thing, it altered their opinion, people will draw their take from media, and the take from media will be kind of non-event.
Right. Well,
I think it's fair. I think the opposition parties were trying to be too clever, even in the scrums, trying to talk about the fact that Doug had a binder and had notes.
Jesus.
I would have asked, if I was in the media, I would have said, but Stephen, according to the debate rules, you shouldn't have even been on fucking stage. So let's, if we want to talk about rules, let's talk about rules. So I just found the inside baseball stuff that the parties, especially the Liberals, they seem to think they've got all these huge attacks. And it's I don't know if their war room sits and titters and laughs with each other and says, we've really got them. And then, it's the equivalent of an inside joke among four people when they actually talk about it on the, when they actually say it out loud to other people. But their absolute obsession with the minute and the thing like the binder, I couldn't, every single fucking reference to, Del Duca going, oh, and Doug over there looking at his empty notes. It was an actual, I actually rolled my eyes watching the debate.
I know this is a small point, but, and we're guilty of giving it too much prominence perhaps, but I couldn't agree with you more. It drives me crazy. this Binder Boy thing. And last night, it wasn't just a war room play, right? As you say, Del Duca brought it up probably 5 times. Oh, your notes, which are written for you. Oh, you can't come on stage unless you've got like, lines written down by someone else, scripted for you by others. Well, Jesus, like I joked last night, who else didn't have his songs written for him? Or who didn't write his own songs? Elvis. Elvis didn't write his own songs. Nobody was complaining about Elvis, okay? He still got gold records. So I think it's a feeble line of attack. And I don't know why they think it has traction, but I would never be putting it in the leader's mouth. It's such a lame, processy waste of time.
Well, I mean, I guess, the opposition clearly didn't take our advice, in my view, about going after Ford and really trying to change people's minds about whether he should be the premier. So, I mean, I struggled trying to find something in the debate that would have moved votes away from Ford. I can understand how votes might have shifted between Del Duca and Horwath. I personally think Del Duca had a good night and Horwath didn't have such a very good night, but we don't know that, right? I mean, there's the huge imponderable of, do people even like Del Duca? Like, we don't know that, right? They don't know him. They were being introduced to him probably when they watched the thing, and you just don't know how people react to a human. So who had a good night and who had a bad night? I don't know. But it felt to me like Del Duca was outperforming Horwath in the thing. But nonetheless, it was all maybe a glancing critique, maybe a reference to donors, for example, with respect to the 413, but then right back to, and I'm going to build schools with that money, and here's what I'm going to do. And so, the purpose of it was not to convince people that Ford was a bad premier. The purpose was to convince people that Del Duca would be a better premier, and I think Horwath basically followed the same lines. I mean, it's hard to critique a campaign that seems to be doing well, so I won't. But I'm surprised still that they didn't feel the need to try to knock Ford off of his paces a little bit more than they did.
Isn't there a clue?
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, me either. That was my criticism during the debate. I was kind of banging the table. Every time I heard developer friends, I thought, okay, great. Now you're gonna like open it up and go, so Mr. Ford, let me ask you about, these 3 people and this shit and all that, but it just never happened. And they just moved on. And that allows Ford to kind of go, okay, I can go back to like, yeah, well, when you were transportation minister, the whole country was a shitstorm. I wonder, David, Jenny, if Greg's numbers are correct and things are happening that we haven't been detecting, that there's traction happening for the Liberals that we haven't seen. Does that mean that last night's choices, and you hinted at this earlier, David, last night's debate choices are in keeping with that strategy? And maybe there's a wisdom to it, which is we just keep talking, present Stephen as measured, thoughtful, capable, competent. They're going to get to know him better. They're going to like him better. And that 905 number will increase. Our seat haul will increase. And then we put ourselves into a jump ball in the final week of the campaign. I assume that has to have been their strategy. I continue to question whether it's an effective strategy.
But to David's point also, like they can't run a safe campaign. Like to David's point, if they want to form government or get close to forming government, the Liberals need to win the 905. So like the kind of safe strategy would be if they were, Del Duca and Doug were tied in the polls, and it was just like, we just can't, like, we don't want to step in it. So we'll just do a safe strategy. He actually, to your point, Scott, he needed to actually come out swinging, whether it was long-term care, whether it was certain COVID policies, whether it was, the 413, he had to kind of come out a bit more swinging then, in terms of the debate. Like even if like we're looking at the numbers, even if they're doing better, it's in no way a government position it's in no way a position right now that they're going to form government. Sure, maybe the Conservatives might have a minority or a small majority, but Del Duca, I don't think, has the luxury of being in a position where he can actually play it safe if he actually is going for the prize.
I think that too, but Maybe they don't. Maybe they say, look, we don't need to win the whole thing on any given day. And the first 10 days of the campaign, we've made steady progress. We'll use this debate as a moment to introduce even more people. Hey, hurrah, looks like Mike Schreiner knocked some votes loose on Ford because he gave Ford the business. We don't think the Green Party will actually harvest those votes, but we will. And they play steady Eddie. It doesn't feel like it works to me, but I don't know. I look at the data and I go, well, maybe all my feels is wrong. My feels is often wrong.
Are they really your feels? Your feels are off. Yes, your feels are often wrong.
Ask almost anybody within my physical orbit. They will tell you I often make very poor judgments. My feels are very, very mistaken.
Why is it that in Ontario, if a person wants to tear down a wartime bungalow and build a mansion, they can. But if they were to turn that same bungalow into a multi-unit home, they'd find themselves in a sea of red tape. Our original sponsor, the Ontario Real Estate Association, says one way to fix the housing affordability crisis in Ontario is by ending exclusionary single-family zoning in high-demand areas. Currently, it is illegal in some neighborhoods to convert a single-family home into a townhome, duplex, etc., without a zoning bylaw change, which delays projects, drives up housing costs, and leaves people stranded without an affordable place to call home. Ending exclusionary zoning, like governments in California, Portland, and New Zealand have done, would allow for the building of duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes on lots traditionally zoned for single-family housing without unnecessary and lengthy case-by-case approvals. OREA is calling on the next government to use the Planning Act to implement as-of-right zoning in Ontario's highest demand urban neighborhoods and put an end to local zoning rules that hold back the development of much-needed starter homes that people can afford. The current policies are at the heart of Ontario's housing affordability crisis in high-growth areas, and it's time the province steps in to modernize these archaic laws to best help middle-class families find a home in the community in which they grew up. You'll be hearing a lot more from OREA over the next several weeks about Ontario's housing affordability crisis and what can be done to fix it, because OREA wants to ensure every Ontarian has a fair shot at home ownership, and that starts with ending exclusionary zoning. Read OREA's plan at ahomeforeveryone.info. Okay, as three people who have lost as gloriously as we have won.
What a wondrous panel to participate in.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go inside NDP HQ today, this morning. I've read a lot. Again, you don't know what happened in the debate till you see the numbers, and none of us watched focus groups or anything like that. But I read a lot about the debates, consumed a lot of commentary. I haven't heard anybody say that Andrea Horwath won that debate. I haven't heard anybody say that Andrea Horwath was impressive or improved her situation in that debate. So let's assume that is the truth. There's so much emotionally on the line in that campaign. Official opposition status for the first time in decades, a chance to be government, Horwath's last run at the campaign. Jenny, what's it like in there this morning?
Oh, well, I think if you're especially someone that's like a Horwath person within the war room, because of course there's always different tiers of people in the war room, right? You've got the core people that either have working at Queen's Park or have been in her orbit that come back. And then you've got like kind of not the ringers, but the partisan people who are not part of the orbit. So you're probably, if you're in the former category, if you are a Horwath person, I think you probably know the writing is on the wall and you're kind of counting down till election day. Like at this point, that doesn't look like there's going to be much change in the numbers. To your point, she's fighting to keep official opposition. I think regardless of what the outcome is in terms of majority or minority, I think that dream is dead. So I think that, and this is her fourth kick at the can, as you said. So I think the feels within the NDP war room, especially among.
Now you're trolling me.
among the especially her people are probably pretty demoralized because this is the final kick at the can. You're feeling pretty like we've been there where you're counting. Like once you realize like there's different stages. You're at the stage where the first week where anything's possible, and then things seem to be going bad, and you're like, we just need more time. We just need more time, and we will fucking turn this thing around. And then you hit the acceptance stage. Like for coming to a campaign conclusion of grief, there's 3, not 5 stages. And then for the stage of the campaign, you're just like, I want this fucking thing to end.
All right. 3.5. There's drink. Drink is.
Hey Scott, on a day like today for the NDP, am I in the office early or late in the morning?
Well, it's you, David. So you're in late. You come in at 12:30, and a bunch of people for 4 hours go, "Where's David?" I don't know. David's not here. Okay. David going to make the call. David, I don't think David's going to make the call today. And then other people improvise and fill in on the call, and then we pretend that we know what we want to do until you arrive. I'll be there early because I'm always up early, and I'll be wandering around going, "Jesus, we're fucked. We're fucked. We're fucked. We're fucked." And then people will come up and scold me and say, "Don't say that in front of everybody." I'm like, "You don't think they know we're fucked? We know it. They know we're fucked. Everyone says." I'm going to spray paint it in the bathroom. I think they have to, and I'm not sure they will because I'm not sure Horvath will. I think that I think last night was bad for Horvath. I mean, maybe we'll be blown away. Maybe 4 days from now we'll find out that that's the exact opposite. But I thought that she was unfocused, unpersuasive when it came to being, if your job was to present yourself positively, she didn't do that as well as the other opposition leaders. If her job was, like, she didn't do that as well as Del Duca, for example, in terms of just sort of, presenting yourself as an alternative. If your job was to attack Ford, she didn't do that as well as Schreiner. And so I don't think she didn't win any race that was visible on that debate. And I think I think their only choice is to go very narrow. And I would drop everything and rebuild my tour, take it right to the places where I think I can hold. I'd focus it exclusively on health. I go straight to I have no choice but to focus on my strength. I make every campaign day about health. I telegraph that it's going to be about health. I tell media so that they're not expecting, oh, it's the 5th day in a row about health. I'd build something incremental about health, pounding away. I'd staple a smile to her face because she betrays her disaffection. It really comes through. So she's got to start to look upbeat. And I think I turned my paid into, you can't trust either one of these sons of bitches. Try to tear away at they're the same thing.
And what are you trying to do with that, Scott? What's your end result that you're hoping for?
To hold on to enough seats that you don't. My end result, based on Greg's numbers, my end result is to hold on to downtown Toronto seats because I think we got to give somebody like a Merritt Stiles a shot at being the next leader as opposed to being on the unemployment line.
So you're trying to save the furniture.
I think so.
But at this point, though,
by the way, I should have said about that polling, by the way, we should really not forget the age distribution we looked at earlier this week. So even with these top line numbers, the Ford lead is still bigger unless the numbers are changing among older voters. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I might disagree, Scott, and they're going to have internal polling. Is I might disagree on the focusing on the 416. It might be too far gone. So you can't get blood out of a stone, right? So
you got to go by your numbers.
If you're looking at the numbers and the Liberals are 15 points up in the downtown ridings because they're their core ridings. Like if you look at those were anomalies for the NDP to pick up: Spadina, Fort York, Toronto Centre, University Rosedale, St. Paul's. Those were anomalies that the NDP won, and so I'm more looking at the Southwestern Ontario seats and the Northern Ontario seats. That's where I think I would focus if I were then. I personally think probably Toronto's almost a lost cause for them.
So sink all of your resources in one or two ridings in Toronto downtown that you want to try to save. That would be, and that becomes obvious.
I put significant resources there, but for the most part, I'd be more
all your GTA resources into one or two TO. Yeah, I agree with that. You got to go by your polling. You got to say but I don't think it's not obvious to me based on these numbers that you can aspire to just be one of the three competitors and pretend that your lock on official opposition at minimum is safe.
No, But these are like, David, you've been there. Like, these are not easy decisions to make. You're like, when you're sitting there looking at numbers and looking at target seats, and you've started the campaign, you know, focusing on a certain amount of seats, and then you're gradually towards, by the end, you're focused on another set. It's awful because you're dealing with people. Like, it's not just seats. Like, once you're managing a campaign, like, we're not all cold, heartless people. Like, there is a personal factor in there, and eventually people aren't stupid on the ground. You have to have conversations with them. Like, yeah, I'm sorry that.
Fuck, Jenny, we were pulling workers out of ridings where, like, Kathleen's friends were running, right? Like, ministers who were like personal friends of hers, right? Hard. And we're pulling the workers out of there and canceling the tour stop there, and right.
We did that in 15 and a lot. Like, I had a campaign manager call and say, oh, well, I guess that I lost I just lost 15 volunteers. It was the Ottawa region, 15 volunteers to go to a different riding. I assume that means things are not looking good for a week from now. And I'm like, yeah, buddy, I'm so sorry.
It's terrible.
We just have no choice.
It's like you have to sit them down and say, sorry, right? You're terminal. Yeah. Make your will and go sailing.
All right, kids, there'll be more to talk about as the week goes on. Half hour is blown by, and I think people like less of us.
I think that's right. Everything about my life suggests that it's indisputable. Every bit of stimulus and feedback I receive.
Scott, lead us off with a blessing or curse.
My curse is to Andrea Horwath, just picking up on what we said, but with a particular focus, a particular lens on it. On May 7th, 2018, Andrea Horwath, God damn it, you showed up at the City TV debate and you were charming and effective and you launched critiques without being mean and you presented yourself in an appealing fashion and you buried any hope that the Liberal Party had and the Kathleen Wynne had of rallying a comeback from a deep deficit in the polls. It was over at that moment. That was, as far as I can tell, the only good night you have ever had as a performer during a campaign or even just in opposition. And it just still frosts my berry that you did it on that night. I watched last night.
No fucking kidding.
Why couldn't you have been good last night? Why did you have to choose May 7th, 2018 to be good? The only goddamn time you ever took a club out of your bag and drove it 280 yards down the middle. And fuck, it was right over top of me. So my curse is Andrea Horwath.
I hear that. I hear that one.
Well, my blessing is to everyone that's following this campaign. I felt in the last 3 days, we've actually been able to talk about something. It's less, I was going to say boring. This is now starting to be things that are happening in the campaign, good or bad. We've had a debate. We've had a really, shitty press conference by the Liberals and Mitzi Hunter on Sunday. But this is great. This is giving us something to talk about. We're into the home stretch, and selfishly, I'm calling on all the campaigns to keep doing stuff that is interesting for everyone following the campaign.
Jenny begs for listeners and viewers to the Curse of Politics. Please, it's interesting. It's getting interesting now, I guarantee you.
You can tune in and hear us talk about things that matter. It's not just recipes and crochet patterns.
All right, my blessing most obviously goes out to Mike Schreiner, who is a really good guy. I had him on the Herle Burley. He's a smart guy, and he's a good person. And, he's not going to win this election, and we're not going to talk about him much in this thing, but he fucking lit it up last night. He was great. He didn't do what I asked him to do on Twitter, which is make climate the centerpiece of everything and go at it. He was on all the issues, but he was thoughtful, and he had the most cogent and hardest attack on Ford. And, he's just a good guy who acquitted himself super well. So, Mike, great job. It's my blessing of the day. I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, TELUS, our sponsors, CN and Aurea. I'd like to thank Allison Smith from Queen's Park Today. I'd like to thank Greg Lyle and the Innovative Research Group. That was interesting, spicy meatball you gave us today. And Jenny, Scott, thanks for taking time out of your busy lives to do this every morning.
See you guys.
See you tomorrow.
See you, Jenny Hair. You're so beautiful, Jenny Hair. Bye. Have a good day, Jenny Hair.